Welcome! You're tuned into the Living in Rhythm podcast, where we wax philosophy and experience in the art and science of living in rhythm. I'm Sunday, and I came here to let my soul shine. It's a lifestyle, you know what I'm saying? Yes, indeed. It's so true. We are in the space between the eclipses, and I'm sure you feel this. The energy, the magic, the heaviness, the cleansing. Big times. See, in between eclipses are powerful times for listening, for tuning in, and seeking the guidance in the polarity, in the axis. And so we are going to talk about the hermetic principle of polarity today. We're going to talk about oppositional energy. It shows up in embodiment practices, in the astrology. It shows up everywhere. Polarity is the name of the game on this planet. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that swing between the poles and the space between. We're going to talk about being able to tune to the center and ground our energies so that we can breathe and circulate and really move intentionally in this world, feeling that polarity in the breathing and in the oppositional energy of our embodiment. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're also going to talk about the eclipses. So we're waxing towards a first quarter square, the half moon. And then from there, we're moving on to a full moon, lunar eclipse. And yeah, I got a workshop with Jill and Patricia on that one. So that'll be really fun. That's happening on the 23rd of August. So we'll talk about all the energetics around that and so much more. So take a moment to ground yourself, to find your center, and to get into this space where you can really tune in and feel the message and receive the message so that you may do something with this message to better your life. Okay, take a nice deep inhale. And as you exhale, ground the energy into the earth. Feel it rooting deeply into the earth. And from that, feel the rise of the inhale as it lifts into the space above. So you have the rooting into the earth and the rising into the space above. And that's important because even in our breath, we have this polarity. The inhale and the exhale, they create an oppositional force. One follows the other in a constant rhythm, and that's a blessing. We want to be able to tune into that and use it for our benefit. So breath is one of the first ways that I have learned to practice this oppositional energy, this balance between the polarities, and really starting to understand how to move through polarity and recognize that there is no bad, there is no right or wrong. There is a matter of the frequency and the polarity, that vibration and the polarity. And so let's talk a little bit about polarity. So the hermetic principle of polarity, basically it states that everything is dual, that everything has its pole, everything has a pair or opposite. And through that, the like and the unlike are actually the same, but they're in different nature to one another. So the polarity is on one same axis, but they're in two different ends of the spectrum. So with that, we have a difference in their nature, but they're also part of a whole in the polarity. And so with these extremes, these extreme poles, you actually can start to sense that there's a place to meet, a space in between the two polarities that you can find a common ground, or you can actually have some balance and some sort of resolution between the opposite energies. And so this is basically the basis of the hermetic principle of polarity. And I love the idea that basically they're one. But they're two opposite ends of the spectrum. And we can see this play out in, like I said, in our breath, the inhale following the exhale, the yin and the yang. We can see it in the polarity in politics, really. Like the right versus the left are, you start going. I've been making a joke that I was so left, I was right. I went right. But I'm really in the middle. Real talk, I've been an independent my whole life, registered. And I'm going to stay that way because I like the freedom to choose between the two poles, because sometimes they feel like they're both doing the same thing. And so back to this idea around the balancing of the two sides of the spectrum. And when you really start to observe this in the moon, here I go, when you see the lunar cycles, this is one of the most obvious places that I've come to terms with understanding, beyond my breath, obviously, the idea of the polarity without. So the breath takes place within my body as a natural state. It just comes. I don't tell my body to breathe. It breathes in a natural state. And when I look without myself, I can observe that rhythm of the polarity between a new moon and a full moon. And that space between all of the phases of the moon that occur, and the space between the new and the full, are very important. They create a balance, and they create it's a procession, it's a progression through a cycle. And as I state, and this is like my thing with living in rhythm, when we understand the wax, the wane, the ebb, the flow, the inhale, the exhale, that rhythm becomes, it's innate, it's a part of life in so many ways. And when we observe the nature of that polarity, when we understand the place in the space that we are within the 2 points, the 2 extremes, then we can meet the moment. We can be present with the energetic forces that are in the moment, that are at hand in the space that we dwell. This is very much a mindfulness presencing game. This idea of really living in rhythm and tuning into this wax and wane. Understanding the polarity will give much insight into the moment. It is one of those things that I've learned to recognize, that if I can understand where I am in space, then I can start to organize how I am in that space. And then through that, I can take action, or I can receive. I can be either, I can move through the space, or I can be more receptive through the space, through the moment. So this is kind of esoteric how I'm describing this, but of course we'll get physical with it. We'll get into the embodiment piece of that. But also, again, like these hermetic principles, they're part of life. They show up in every way. It's almost like the way how sacred geometry shows up in nature. You can see the patterns cycling and making their rhythmic patterns, their design in nature. Well, this is the same within our body. This is the same within life's cycles. And so again, when we understand how and where we are in any given point in these cycles, we can meet the moment at our best. So how do we do that? Cosmic synchronization and core calibration. So the core calibration embodiment is the way that I describe my tuning in and my maintenance, my daily maintenance that I use to practice being in my physical body and present in the moment, in harmony with nature. So I call it core calibration because we really do tune in. Through this practice, I like to breathe and center. I like to tune in, mind, body, spirit, physical, energetic, psychological, emotional states. All of these are applicable, and at any given place, they're doing different things depending on what's happening in life. And so just a simple 1 to 3 breaths to tune in is what I've spoken of for many years in this podcast. The idea of just using one single intentional breath, 1 to 3 breaths to ground the energy. And then we've been building this season, the second season of the podcast, I'm starting to add more embodiment practices, some of these maintenance moves that I use to calibrate my core and to stay centered. And so a breathing exercise that I've been doing recently that I absolutely enjoy and adore, I feel like it's so powerful, is this idea of the 4-count breath. And the reason why I love this 4-count breath is because it gives you a moment the same amount of time throughout the inhale and the exhale, as well as making time for the space between the inhale and the exhale. So for example, with the 4-count breath, you inhale 1, 2, 3, 4 counts, and then you hold the breath for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you go again. So I love this idea. You can keep going if you like, but this idea of inhaling for the count, holding for the same count, that space between, stay calm, stay grounded. Exhale for the same count. Hold again for that same count. And again, observe the nature of your energetics, of your state of being in the space between. Because see, the space between is where the magic happens. We can talk a lot about new moons, full moons. We just had that powerful solar eclipse at the heart of the lion, trine the galactic center. The energy is potent. That was a powerful day, but it was a couple hours that eclipse took place in one day. And yet we are in this space between when the moon now waxes from that solar eclipse towards a full moon. And in that time period, we go from a dark moon that moves in front of the sun, between the earth and the sun, to block the sun's light temporarily, to then transition and keep going. That dark moon then starts to grow light that is reflected onto that lunar surface, which grows from the right side to the left, waxing crescent, waxing first quarter square, which is happening on August 19th. We'll talk about it. To then waxing gibbous, to then the full moon, full waxed, full spectrum lunar light. And then we have the solar eclipse, or the lunar eclipse, where the Earth's shadow is then cast upon the lunar visual from Earth, making it dark again. And then as the shadow moves off of the moon, the Earth's shadow moves off of the moon is revealed again as a full moon, which will then proceed to wane toward a new moon. I love this. These cycles are important. When you can start to embody this rhythm, the energetics of the rhythm, to then develop a relationship with your body, the earth as a body, the sun and the moon as celestial bodies. These rhythms are influencing us on a constant basis. The moon influences the tides of the earth. It influences all waters. Therefore, us being made of 72% or more water, then we are also influenced by this wax and this wane. This breathing exercise of catching that wax of the inhale, to then hold for a moment as if an eclipse is occurring, to then exhale to an empty lung situation, complete in that emptiness. You're at the new moon, holding again to then embrace a new inhale, bringing more breath, more oxygen, more life into the body. And then the cycle repeats, and it repeats, and it repeats. And again, to understand the rhythm and the nature will help you understand yourself. And so breathing is one of the most important ways that you can start to understand this balance of the polarity within. On top of this breathing, then this idea of really lining the spine. I say head, heart, and hips in an alignment. You are in that moment, head, heart, hips in alignment. You're stacking the spine, aligning the chakras as best you can just from that one cue. And then to breathe and circulate the energy from that head, heart, hip alignment is very helpful. It allows full circulation of the body when the spine is stacked and the limbs are open and the heart and the energy is circulating. You're going to get, it's a healthier way to breathe. You're going to be circulating fuller, fresher, clean oxygen through the whole body when you do that. And so breathing is very important, but I also want to talk about the oppositional energy that occurs. So in Pilates, we use a spring. I have my reformer behind me. If you're listening, you can't see it, but if you're watching, you might be able to see my reformer behind me. In Pilates, we use springs to create feedback and to build strength and endurance through the movements. When the spring opens, the spiral coil of the spring opens up. We're decompressing the spring. And what I like to visualize is that my spine is a spring. And as I stack my head, heart, and hips in an alignment and I get long, I can feel that oppositional coil opening up and decompressing. Part of it is spiraling down toward the earth, while the other part is spiraling up towards the sky. And what I love about the visual of the spring and the spiral is it's not linear. It's circular, it's spiralic. It's not only moving up and down, but it's also moving out into the fields to the front and the back, to the left and the right, to the diagonals. Because of the nature of the spiral, you're getting a 3-dimensional, potential 5-dimensional energetic decompression just from a thought of decompressing your internal spring. And so I visualize that. I stack head, heart, hips in an alignment, and then I'll take the breath and I visualize through the counts the decompression of that coil on the inhale. I go to the edge and I hold the space, hold the decompression. And as you exhale with the same count, you catch that energetic recoil, because as the spring closes, that recoil is providing energy. You want to catch that energy and absorb it through your center of gravity, take it through your spine into your core, and it builds strength and endurance and support for you structurally. See, most people, they'll take that oppositional force of the coil and they let it slam into itself. If you let that coil slam back together after you've opened and stretched it and decompressed it, you're losing energy. That is not working the polarity. It is allowing the polarity to work you. So instead of that, you reach through the oppositional force, the diagonals, the energetic spiral. And then as it comes back in, as it recoils or as you exhale, you catch that energy through your center of gravity to support the structure of the decompressed center of gravity. I know that's a lot. Do your best, because I'm going to keep teaching it. And so if you don't get it now, you'll get it later, but keep listening, because this is so important. And I just am honored to be able to share it. And real talk, like if you're listening still and you're receiving this information, let me know. Leave a comment or subscribe or whatever you got to do. I never ask for this stuff because I kind of don't like to, but the truth is like, I want to know if you're catching this information. I'm sharing a lot of deep information that I've been feeling drawn to share in new and exciting ways, which I feel like I'm experimenting with this. And it's a service, it's a gift and a service to my community, whoever's receiving it. And so, yeah, just let me know if you're catching it, if you get this, because if it's deep stuff, there's a lot of layers to it, but I'm honored to share it. And I really, really hope that you are receiving this, because these are life-changing skills that I've used ongoing for many years of my life now, which is why I feel confident to share them, because they are tried and true to my life's experience. And so I'm speaking from experience and from the heart. So I hope you receive it. Okay? And so that's the oppositional energy of the polarity that occurs in the embodiment. And then the final thing that I wanted to share with y'all today in regards to embodiment is I just want to give you a little more awareness to your feet, which seems super out of the blue, but it isn't. It's important. The feet are, so this full moon, which we will talk about, it's occurring in the sun, in the sign of Pisces, the zodiac sign of Pisces, which every zodiac sign has a body part that it rules, so to speak, that it reflects and speaks to. Pisces is all about the feet. 2 feet, 2 fish, 2 fins. Okay, so the feet are the representative of Pisces, the body part that represents Pisces. And so with this full moon, this eclipse that's coming up, I thought I'd share a little bit of foot wisdom with you, that there are 26 bones in the human foot, and it is structurally designed to be extremely flexible and load/weight bearing. So the amount of movement that our hands and feet can do is actually quite phenomenal. When you study anatomy and physiology, it is an incredible thing. And as a Pilates teacher, I have taught many different ages and many different body types and different needs and abilities in the body, from strong high athletes to teachers, people that are studying to be Pilates teachers, to 60, 70, 80, and even 90-year-olds. I taught a 96-year-old woman. I have witnessed a lot of different ranges that the body goes through depending on what types of situations it lives in. And what I will say is that your feet are one of your most important body parts. The whole body is important, but the feet get put in socks and in shoes, and then we just move along. And what I want to say is that as much as you can, at the end of your day, elevate your legs, elevate your feet. It helps. You've been on them all day. The pressure goes down. The circulation, it's a long way for the blood to pump from the heart down to your pinky toes. So you got to encourage that. You got to take the load off sometimes. While they're elevated, point flex. Point flex. As much as you can, creating equal lowerling lifting from the inner and outer arch. Notice if the foot likes to cattywampus out towards the pinky toes or in towards the big toes. See if you can balance it, sort of using the pointer toe and the ring, the middle ring, the 3 middle toes basically as a guiding force for the point flex. Let the big toe and the pinky toe sort of do their shaka things that they do, but that guiding force that helps you keep the foot and ankle straight is the middle toes, the 3 middle toes. From there, you can circle the ankles a few times in each direction. I'll also play with that, not only parallel with the 3 middle toes pointing and flexing center. You can also do what's called a Pilates V, where you bring the heels together so the toes are apart, and then you point flex from there. And then you can do what my friend Haskell calls the Pilates A, where you bring the toes towards one another and the heels apart, and you point and flex from there. Do all 3 positions, circling around. You can definitely do this lower lift from a seated position with your feet on the floor. Also from standing. I suggest all of the above. But more importantly, just elevate those legs, point flex when they're elevated. Move your feet, keep them flexible and pliable. It will help you long term with balancing the polarity of what it means to be living in gravity on Earth, because that gravity is trying to bring you to that ground. And so you got to reach up in opposition of that with the strong, integrated center of gravity and core calibrated and a nice flexible foot ankle. All right? All right, so that's the core calibration embodiment practice for this sesh. Now we're going to move on to the Cosmic Sync Astrology. So, oh gosh, this is a big, like I said, we're in between. We're in this interesting space between. And so I really, more than anything, you want to observe the space between. And again, I'll come back to the sun and the moon and, like it's interesting, like sunrise, sunset are the perfect example. They're so glorious and they're so bright and colorful, and there's lots of change happening at that point of sunrise, at that point of sunset. But what about the space between? What do we do at that time, that space between? Where's our energy? Where's our mind? Where is our focus? How are we embodied or not? And how can we get more embodied? Well, one of the ways is through observation, tuning in and practicing your sense of awareness and mindfulness. By tuning into your embodiment, by calibrating the core, you automatically are setting yourself up for more clarity in your awareness and in your observation. From there, I love to tune into the sensory system. What am I feeling? What am I hearing? Seeing, smelling, tasting. So you can get into that tuning in, and then through that you get to feel. You get to feel the space between. You get to feel the energetics of the wax or the wane, the coming, the going, the within, the without. So right now we are in the final degrees of the sun being in the zodiac sign of Leo. And so we had this powerful new moon that was a solar eclipse, and now we made it through the dog days of summer, and now we're basically moving into the final phase of summer, which is the sign of Virgo. But before we do that, we have the waxing moon. So on the waxing half moon. So on August 19th, the sun will be at 27 degrees Leo, square the moon at 27 degrees Scorpio. This sun square moon is always a half moon. Depending on what phase we're in of the moon, it's either going to be a waxing quarter half moon or a waning quarter half moon. Since we just had the new moon solar eclipse, we're waxing. So this is a waxing first quarter square. And when you see the moon, it's up in the middle of the day, half moon. The right side is going to be illuminated every time it's waxing. So you can just know that. Just know it. It's base information, base knowledge and wisdom that the moon, when waxing, is right side illuminated. Okay? As it waxes then, we've talked about that. I basically am dropping the podcasts around the waxing halves. It's fun because it's a space between. And no one's talking about those. Everybody talks about the new moons and the full moons, and they are amazing. The eclipses are the most powerful new moons and full moons of the year. But what about the space between that? What do we do? Because we're still working with the same frequency of those points of the polarity. And so how do we balance that energetic and make it whole so we're not thrown to one side versus the other? It's a dance between the two. You don't land in one and stay in one. It keeps moving, living in rhythm. So from here then, the sun will continue to move through the sign of Leo. And then on the 23rd of August, the sun will move into 0 degrees Virgo, the zodiac sign of Virgo, which is a mutable earth. All of the final signs, all the signs that are ruler of the final degree, the final phase of the season. So like I said, we have a beginning, middle, end to each season. The final phase of summer is Virgo. It's mutable. All of the final phases are mutable because they're preparing for change. The mutability is changeable. It's transforming. It's moving from that fixed sign, like we're just going in this fixed energy of Leo that we've been in, to now this mutable earth, which is interesting because earth is kind of solid and steady. So to be changeable earth is very interesting. When I think of Virgo, I think of harvest. I think of preparing that soil post, like getting the flowers and the food and nurturing the soil again once we've harvested. It makes me think of discernment. I think of curation and precision. It takes, the moment of harvest is a specific moment. If you go too far, then If you go too far, the fruit will be too ripe. If you do it too early, it's not ripe enough. There's a discernment and a critical analysis and precision that comes from curating the perfect harvest. This is big, beautiful stuff that requires observation, analysis, wisdom, grace, all of these things, all of these powerful things. And so from that, I really think it's interesting because when I study the zodiac, when I study the zodiacal cycle, I think of the seasons, but I also think of this evolution of the zodiac. So, for example, obviously the final phase of summer, we are preparing harvest. We're preparing for the fall, which is a big time. And by the time we get to the fall, there's things that have to change in order to make it through winter, so to speak. But so there's an energetic occurrence of the zodiac through the season, the solar season. But then when you study that evolution through the actual zodiac, it's profound. So I haven't done this yet this season 2 of the podcast. So here goes. The first sign of the zodiac is Aries. It's the light, it's the fire, it's the spark of life. It's the first sign. I am here. That is Aries. And then you go through Taurus. By the time you get to Taurus, it reminds me of a baby observing the world. In the Taurus energy, they are so sensory aware. If you think of a baby, when they first start observing the world, they want to put it in their mouth. They want to touch it. They want to taste it. They want to smell it. They're looking, they're listening. They're extremely curious about the world through their senses. Through that, then we evolve into the sign of Gemini, which then contemplates, starts to make it more of a mental energy. So they take that sensory observation and curiosity, and then they start to think about it. You start to contemplate. You gather concepts and ideas around the awareness and the study through the senses. Then, as you move through the mental observation, you make your way into the emotional observation, which rules the sign of Cancer. The Cancerian energy is all of an emotional awareness, an emotional intelligence. They're sensing and feeling, they're feeling the world. Rather than thinking it so much as a Gemini would, the Cancerian then feels their way through. By the time it gets to Leo, it's a creative expression of a full embodiment. So you get to play and express and create through that emotional intelligence, the intellectual intelligence, the sensory awareness, and the development of the I am. From there, we get to Virgo. Virgo then embodies, integrates, moves through, comes to, it finesses, it gets precise about the play, about the experimentation, and it makes it more curated, more intentional. It's more discerning, and it's preparing for Libra, which is the state of the other, outside of the self. And so Virgo is the last sort of inner work of the zodiac. As you get through, as you move to Libra, it's then without. It's a little more without energetics. We'll get to that later. So that's the Virgo energy. And so I'm laying some foundation, but again, I dare you to observe and have your own experience with this. This is the whole point of the way that I share and teach is really circulating around a practice of you being willing to then observe and connect and have your own relationship to this work. I mean, this is the depth of what we're doing here. It's key. It's key. So, okay, that's the Virgo energy. The final thing I want to talk about today is this eclipse that's occurring on the 27th or 28th of August, depending on where you're at in the world. It's occurring on August 27th at 10:12 p.m. Mountain Time. I'm in Colorado, so I'm always doing Mountain Time. And so it's a north node lunar eclipse on a full moon. The north node means it's more future oriented. And so the sun is going to be at 4 degrees Virgo, and the moon is going to be at 4 degrees Pisces. However, the axis of the lunar nodes, the axis of heart and soul, is at 29 degrees Leo and Aquarius, which is where we had that eclipse, the solar eclipse in Leo and Aquarius. This is fascinating because it's a north node eclipse, but because it's happening in the axis, the sun and the moon are in the axis of Pisces and Virgo. This means that it's a little south node-ish in my personal opinion, because we are revisiting the axis of Pisces and Virgo, which is the axis that I termed as the axis of spiritual discernment. And I'm looking around and I'm observing and I'm seeing what's happening on my socials and in politics and in the world and in conversations. And I'm recognizing that, we need to revisit spiritual discernment at this point to move forward, empowered and embodied. It's time to get real clear about where our energy is and how we're moving forward. And again, in this space between these eclipses is the perfect time to observe what sort of things are showing up for you. How are you responding? How can you come back to center and get more insight and wisdom and guidance from that state, that centered, organized center of gravity, and then observing the energetics so that you can make a clear decision about how to balance the polarity that's happening right now. Because I can feel there's a big push-pull. There's a trying to get people to be on each other's teams. I don't want any of that. I am staying so neutral in the polarity of the two extremes because I understand that they're connected. They're both connected. And so rather fight or get tossed and turned between the two poles. How do we work the balance in the axis? That is what the eclipses show us. They show us how to move through karmic patterns and then embrace our true nature, our dharmic path, the soul mission. And so during space between, especially between a solar south node towards a north node lunar eclipse, we are getting a lot of polarity around things that need to go, things that need to leave, things that we need to move on from. What are we going to gather up that we use today to then move forward into the future? And what are we going to leave behind that we don't need anymore? That's not serving our greater purpose, or if it's not serving our community or humanity as a whole. These are really powerful times to be embracing the idea of being true to yourself, centered and balanced, and allow the feedback and the wisdom to be received through that polarity. The wisdom is there. You just got to find the center. And then from there, you can feel the swing between the two poles, gather information from both, and make what's true to you, what's true for you, your commitment to yourself, your mission, your path. This is... And I'm not talking politics. I mean, I am a little bit, but this is bigger than that. This is about life. This is about your life. It really is. And I deeply, deeply believe that through the wisdom that is revealed in eclipses when we are present with them, especially in the space between, we're given guidance and insight if we're tuned in. If we're brave enough and courageous enough and honest with ourselves enough to step into our power, to be who we really are, and to let our soul shine, because that's why we came here, to be who we are. There's only one you, and there's only one me. So it's time to do it, y'all. All right? And there's some other things that are happening with this eclipse but it's electric friction. So I'm going to save that for our workshop that I'm doing with Jill Catanzarite and Patricia Clark on August 23rd. It's Sunday at 10 a.m. Mountain, 12 p.m. Eastern, and we're calling it the Electric Eclipse. It's a pre-lunar eclipse gathering, and we're doing these before the events because we want to give you the information that you need to then make it your own and have your own experience through the eclipses rather than projecting whatever we're thinking about. I want you to really have your own experience. That's what I'm doing as I teach. So please join us. You can check out livinginrhythm.com and sign up for the Electric Eclipse workshop. Yes, there will be a replay, but come join us in person because we're gonna break down the eclipses, but also in these workshops, we're looking at the charts, your chart specifically, so that we can help you look at your chart and see where's the eclipse happening for you. How do you work with it? All this information we're sharing. Jill's sharing crystal wisdom that is going to help us align in our energetics with more, the tools of the crystals. And then there will be more embodiment tools along with the astrology. So it's a full spectrum event and we are having fun with these. And so this is a big moment because we're going to have this lunar eclipse and then we'll be in a space between eclipses again. So we'll have some time to work with what we learned this last moon cycle till 6 months from now when we head into the next eclipse cycle, which takes place next, I think it's March or February or whatever. I think it's March and February, but more on that later. So yeah, check out the Electric Eclipse workshop and then definitely subscribe if you're not already. Leave a comment. Would love the feedback. Would love your support. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you so much for tuning in. The gratitude is here. I am seriously loving sharing this work with you. So let me know that you're feeling it and receiving it. Blessings and love to all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace.